Hello, world. It's me, Dennis Tardan.
Well, world, it's me, John Wright.
And we are two old white guys. And here we are in mid March, right after the Ides of March in 2022. And we were discussing everything to do with me as a progressive and you, John,
I'm a moderate libertarian.
a
I,
moderate libertarian. So
I'm
you you
sorry, a
are you've
conservative.
disowned the
No,
conservative.
I am a conservative libertarian.
Great. And I want
Ha,
to
God.
I want to ask you about that because I'm interested in the word conservative because I've had in my past while I have looked at conservatism and I've seen that the word to conserve means to retain, like in other words the conservation of the planet, or the conservation of a culture, or the conservation of well, just the laws of thermodynamics. Tell me, as you describe yourself as a conservative, what does that mean?
Well, basically, a conservative has one. I mean, there are the things that you talk about.
Sure.
Believes in the rule of law,
Yes.
and everyone is responsible for their own actions.
Yes.
If you're crazy, you still have to be proven crazy. I'm
Exactly.
sorry, insane. Uh,
And
so
this comes, and I just want all the audience to know that this is an actual physician who has corrected himself and brought in that because, John Wright, you are a physician.
Yes, I am. Dr. John Charles Wright. Now, you
John
can call me
Charles
John,
Wright.
or you can call me Johnny, or you can call me Jack, and you can call me Charlie, or you can call me Charles. You can call me JC or JCW, but you doesn't have to call me Doctor.
Johnston. All right, Doc. Thank you, John. Now, we're getting back to conservatism and conservative. And so, how do you define yourself as a conservative libertarian, and what does that mean? And how do you see it differs from progressivism?
Well, libertarianism believes he who governs best governs least.
Right,
All right, either way, he who governs least governs best.
right.
Progressives believe we got a plan and you're going to follow it.
Really? Now,
So,
what if I disagreed with that, John?
well, you can
What if
certainly
I
disagree because
and
you're a
I
progressive.
know I understand that, but what I'm asking is that I also agree with you. Is the absolute least amount of regulations that are possible in order to achieve an aim is the absolute goal. We should have the fewest possible in order to be able to achieve a goal that we both want to achieve.
That is correct. I hate to agree with you, but yeah.
So since we both have, the only difference is we're determining where should that level of regulation be,
My entire life, this is from college on when I was actually exposed to liberals and progressives,
right?
the arguments that they made for some change of society
Hmm.
always entailed everybody else changing.
Really?
And I would stop. It was very easy to stop conversation
Hmm.
if I just said, well, okay, you can't control that now because you're just a college student.
Yes.
Maybe in the future, what are you going to do with the one thing you can control, yourself, and
Yes.
try and bring this about? That
Yes.
usually shut them up.
Really? Well, this was now you were in college. This would be in the late '60s, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So this is a time of big change in the in the culture and all that we're talking. And every single spiritual philosophy, every single change agent I've ever seen has always said, first change yourself, then change the world.
That is
So work
correct.
from the inside out. So you and I, we're the same. But and whatever progresses that I have seen, and because one of the things that I want us to discuss on Two Old White Guys is the difference between the press and what people say progressivism is, what people say conservatism is, and what it really is. Because I think there's some bad press that has been going around. There is some bad press that says one of the bad presses is that says that the progressive want to control how people behave, and control them in a way, because I want to. There's a difference between control and influence.
Well, control is law. I mean, there ought to be a law,
Yeah,
and the progressives, and as far as they're concerned, they're doing it for the good of humanity.
yes.
But my question is, who made you the Jello sheriff around here?
Well, yeah, but if we feel that, I mean, back during that time, before President Nixon installed the EPA, the rivers were actually on fire. They
Yes,
were
no, I
actually on. I mean, there was the pollution and that was actually there was killing not just the ecosystem, but it was damaging people and cancer rates and all that were there before that happened. Correct?
yes, and you had Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which came out
Exactly.
before that. The No, I'm not opposed to all laws.
Right.
I'm opposed to laws which needlessly
Hmm.
inflict uh, burdens on the people.
Right.
The progressives routinely. I mean, every time I listen to, say, AOC,
This would be Congress
Alexandria Ocasio
Ocasio
Cortez.
Cortez. Yes, and
Yes,
when you listen to her, what do you hear?
I hear her tell us what we need to do,
Hmm.
but then you see what she does, and it's rank hypocrisy.
Well, welcome to the human race. Have you known a human being who is not hypocritical? Have you met one?
Well, I'm not.
Other than yourself. You're the one non-hypocritical being on the earth. But other than you, I'm talking about hypocrisy. Doesn't that come with the human condition?
No, biases come with human condition.
Right.
Hypocrisy comes with saying one thing and meaning that one thing that
Yes.
you other people have to do,
Right.
but you exclude
You
yourself.
don't, but we don't have to do it. I don't have to do it. I just have to tell other people. Por
That's right,
ejemplo.
because I'm intelligent and I
Exactly.
am the wisest of all, and I know everything.
And so therefore you should do everything that I tell you to do, even though I am not going to be the one that does it.
That is correct. I'm not the one that's got to live under it.
Exactly. Like, for example, por ejemplo.
Simple. Look at all of the screams that are, they're still arguing about masking
Right.
for the COVID mask.
Who is still arguing about it?
Well, let's start with most of the people of New York.
Right.
Ocasio, the Congress is still masking and
Yes.
fining people for not masking.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been more than, and I even knew it when the first orders for masking came out. As a surgeon, we knew that if you could feel air coming through your mask,
Mm-hmm.
you were not blocking bacteria or viruses.
Mm-hmm.
If there was no
So
air coming,
are
Huh?
you saying that are you saying that N95s do not work?
if you can feel air coming out of the front where you're breathing
Right.
of an N95, it's either been put on wrong or it's not working.
That I understand. But what about air coming in through does it filter things out coming in?
No, because
So in other words, so
the
you're
same
saying they don't
rule,
work?
huh?
So you're saying, and you're saying masks do not do anything as far as protecting us from
Exposure.
exposure.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. I mean,
It's
even,
the green
I,
little men that are trying to take us over, lad.
here's my problem with that is that I actually talked with the head of the Vanderbilt of the Vanderbilt labs, who I've had 4 podcasts with him, and Dr. James Crow, and I mean, they're the ones that did all the monoclonal antibodies, if I said that
Research,
right.
yes, and
And
production.
they're the ones that got it into production and all, and he wears a mask when he's going out, and he used a mask, and he says that's effective, and you're saying that they're not?
I'm saying that for every rule, you can find an exception. I was listening out on Gutfield. They have a libertarian called her name is they call her Kat Timpf,
Yes.
and she got COVID. She was vaccinated, had the booster, was wearing a
Hmm.
mask, and got COVID again.
Hmm.
And you look at the stuff that is beginning to leak out of CDC. This, in many ways, it was much ado about nothing. You had to protect. There's even some indication. I'm just talking that this stuff was around before people said, "Oh, it's the South Africans who are very good at DNA research
Hmm.
uh, came back and said, we think that this has been around South Africa and Africa for almost 10 years.
Hmm.
So the hysteria of the mask is one, as I said, as a surgeon, we knew that it didn't work. If we were going to really try to prevent any kind of contamination, we wore a spacesuit.
That I understand, but I'm asking you, how do you determine how much less, uh, fewer cases, fewer deaths, by huge amounts that Japan had than we had? How do you determine that? Do you think it's genetics, or is it what is the difference? Because they masked early, they separated, they locked down, and they were able to contain it, and they had a far lower. Plus, they have lower than we did.
Well, the Japanese, if you ever watch Japanese and Chinese in public, are almost always wearing a mask. And particularly in the winter, cold thing, they're wearing a mask. I even saw a Chinese couple walking around. They had a 40 double D bra, and he was
Hmm.
wearing it on one foot. She was wearing it on the other. But the degree of infection, at least on the information that's coming from the CDC,
Right.
does not support, and this is being discovered, being drug out of the CDC.
Good. Which is what we want. I mean, this is where freedom of information. You're in favor of freedom of information acts and being
Oh,
able to.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Uh, unless it's one of those for the uh, security of the nation, national security. The
Sure.
problem with that is that a lot of garbage is judged for the national security,
Hmm.
and when
I
you
know
find,
we can overclassify, right? I mean that's a whole thing. It's so easy to classify something, and then you have to be able to do it. All right. Well, let me just ask. So on this thing, when we're so your sense of mask, do you feel that the mask or not mask is an impingement upon your liberty?
I think that it is an impingement upon my liberty insofar as it has not proven to be an effective means. And the other thing is it is an indication of hypocrisy on the part of our leaders.
Hmm.
Where did
That.
AOC? She went down to Washington, down to Florida, where there's no mask law, and she was running around without a mask.
Hmm.
The mayor of Los Angeles, I believe it was the mayor,
Hmm.
was standing getting pictures with the uh, football teams
Sure.
at the Super Bowl. He didn't have a mask,
Hmm.
and he said, "Well, I was holding my breath." Well, that was a
Yeah.
fantastic
No,
breath
no,
hold.
no, no. That's not. And I think that hypocrisy in any sense. But here's the thing. I mean, if we can say, here we have the Ukraine, and we have the bombings and all the thing, and then we have mask wearing. I mean, can't we discuss something more substantive? Isn't there something more important that we can do? Because I'm asking about this freedom. If we're going to talk about mask, or we're going to talk about the kinds of freedoms that we're talking about, because as a progressive, I believe that there must be a shared responsibility. All right, those of us whom a lot is given, a lot is expected. We can be part of helping to raise the tide and level the playing field for everyone, because we have a lot of resources. We have a lot of what we can do. Is that at all? Can that at all fit within the libertarian and conservative philosophies?
Well, Dennis, as I listen to you speak, the words of Spider-Man,
Hmm.
much is required of those who have great power. I am reminded of the plantation mentality.
Hmm.
I first became convinced about the plantation mentality back in the 60s when they were trying to tell everyone that Ebonics was the language that you had to use to teach blacks, that blacks
Hmm.
were not going to college, they were not learning
Hmm.
because they were incapable of speaking English, which basically what it was, as
Really?
opposed to,
I did not know that.
well, they wanted blacks to be taught in Ebonics, which in effect is saying not every black person
Right.
lives in a ghetto,
No.
and not every person that I've met that are blacks speaks with the patois
No.
of the ghetto. I
No.
have a book, and it's somewhere around here. It was written by a Harvard professor,
Hmm.
and it was called Juba to Jive, in which he went through definitions and the things that are specific, as he understood, to the
Hmm.
African community. And most of them
Sure.
were just descriptions. I mean, my transcriptionist who was black, I had to educate her what packing peanut butter meant. Um, there was the term I loved was wigger, which is a white guy that affects black dress, black manners, black uh, not speech, but black dialect, I guess.
Yes.
And this came from the black side. I mean, this is a black professor.
Oh, I've been studying Zora Neale Hurston. Their eyes are watching God and all of her stories. I mean, she went into the Gulf Coast and did all of the Negro folk tales during and she was highly criticized for using so much of the dialects within her own stories as she was telling these stories.
And those same people fuss at Mark Twain because he used his characters based
Right.
on where they were. He gave them the dialect. He
Exactly.
used the language that they would use.
Exactly.
That's an author. That's right. The people that were criticizing her are not inclusive.
Right. And you believe in inclusivity.
Inclusivity or inclusiveness
Hmm.
is the absence of boundaries.
Right.
Any thought process, Black Lives Matter,
Right.
it's exclusive.
It is, but here's the problem that I have with that, John, and I want to really work is because I believe that was a branding mistake.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that it was a branding mistake that it is that the act what they because as I have studied, as I have talked with people within the movement, as I have worked before, what they are saying is that Black Lives Matter too. They do not mean black lives. This isn't a
Okay.
binary state. This
Uh,
is a Black Lives Matter as white lives matter as indigenous peoples matter. People matter. So in other words, we're taking a class of people, a classification of people, and we're saying that they also matter, and they matter as much as the dominant class, which is white.
but if we are inclusive, you don't need that boundary. You don't need that.
If
But
that's if, but
if
look at
I
that.
understand that, but let's
That's an
the
if.
Black Lives Matter. If you were accosted by a apostle or disciple of Black
Hmm.
Lives Matter, and you said, "Look, I believe all life matters,"
Yes,
you were chastised. You were
exactly,
violently berated.
exactly,
Now, that is setting a boundary. And
exactly,
if Black lives really matter, which I agree, life matters and Black lives mattered.
absolutely.
Let's look at Chicago, all those Black people
Yep.
that are being murdered in the street.
Yes. And why do you think that is, John? And what because I'm asking, I'm interested in. So here we have the median income of the average white family, when you put that in, when you do the it's median income, it's $120,000. That's their worth. This is the worth of the family. The the median income of a black family is $20,000. This is $120,000 for the white family, $20,000 for the black family. How do you explain that?
I was a team physician for a school which was on the lower income scale,
Right.
high percentage of blacks and Hispanics.
Mm-hmm.
The coach of the football team, I was a team physician. The coach was a friend of mine, and he came from West Texas. I mean, he had not had that exposure,
Mm-hmm.
but he said, it appears, and this has been supported by other sociologists, that in that grouping, that socioeconomic strata,
Right.
a male proves his worth by getting a female pregnant, proves that he is a man.
Mm-hmm.
The female proves that she is a woman by becoming pregnant and bearing children. He asked, said, that's not good because you really can't support the child at this point. Don't you want to graduate from high school, go to educate? Certainly you're an athlete
Right.
enough. You probably let's go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can live in a place where people aren't shot, drug addicts aren't wandering the streets,
Right.
etc. The kid looked at it and said, yeah, like that kind of place exists. You want to compare whites, let's compare white
All right.
to.
Let's stop. Can you stop right there, John?
Yeah.
I want to say, repeat what he said, what the young boy said.
Yeah, like that. There's a place like that. That was
Exactly.
What the
So his experience, that young man's experience, his imagination, his ability to see and experience beyond. He had not experienced that a place like that even exists.
He had probably never been told that place could exist. You remember the film?
In other words, but it must be. I mean, he has access to television. He has access to that. There is that possibility out there. But for him within his culture, he did not see. All right. So now, how could we address that, John? What would be the opportunity to be able to get him beyond that idea that there is a possibility beyond his limited experience, his limited belief? Isn't that us? Can't we have that as a responsibility to help get that into the schools, get that into it? Wouldn't that be something positive?
So what you're saying is it's the white man's burden to bring the blessings of prosperity to our brown brothers all over the world.
Not in the least. It's to
Well,
bring
that's what you
the
said.
possibility. That's what you heard. There's a difference between what I said and what I heard, and I take every responsibility for what I said, and certainly that I can say it poorly and not say it well enough. And that's one of the things that I want on Two Old White Guys is that you help me to say it better, because I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that actually, if that person has not experienced that there is a world different from what they are, what they've seen, that they have not even experienced that there is a bubble beyond that, then perhaps that we can help them to see that within their own, not to buy into what I believe, but buy into that there's something greater than what they believe is possible, that they can actually reach their grasp. It's someone. Give you an example. I was at HEB, which is a grocery store chain here in Texas. I was at HEB
everywhere,
and I went to the what we were getting water, and I was getting it in our gallon jugs, and I was getting water, and there was waiting right there, and I was right then I was part of the wanted voting rights and to talk about, and there was a guy next to me, and I said, "Have you registered to vote?" He said, "No." I said, "What would you vote?" "No, I'm just a poor Mexican."
Well,
now hold on a second. He was a citizen first. The
sure.
second thing is that his belief system, the way he said it, and me, of course, I'm Mexican, and it just hurt me so deeply because his belief was, I'm just a poor Mexican. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to do. He didn't say it with there was no embarrassment. It was just like a dead ass fact. And that was like, oh my God, is there no way that we can exceed our imagination?
Excuse me.
Let us drink to
I
that. And
aspirated. Oh, thank you. That change that you want,
yes,
that change that we all want, requires people to stop being victims. That's the first thing.
absolutely.
Secondly,
Absolutely.
the social attitude that is out there, the people have to change it. Because look, you can name any number of ghetto raised children, and you can also name ghetto raised children who have risen to the top of a profession.
Right.
They
Look
were
at Michelle
exposed to this. They were
Michelle
exposed to
Obama.
this.
Michelle Obama was on the south side of Chicago. There were a lot of gangs and she had lower middle class working parents. He worked for the railroad, and she were and she the and not for the railroad, but worked for the city, and they put her through and got her into school, and
That is
she
correct.
succeeded and went to Yale and got her law degree and worked for a big firm, and so yes, that was an example of possibility.
That's right. And there are so many self quick, give me the term. I'm getting an old timer's minute.
Right.
There's self. Uh, God, it's when you make a prediction,
Yes.
but you skew.
Self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yes, a self-fulfilling prophecy. I got that. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
So, damn. So often,
yeah.
It's that kind of approach that gets people into problem. I don't know. In one of the tracks I read, it said, "This is the problem. They marry too soon, they breed too often, they die too young." And they were speaking about the Italian lower class,
Right.
not the Hispanic. That's part of the problem. Because, as I said, when you see into it what the people in this small community, what the black students think the mark of a man is, the mark of a woman is. When I was in
That's
Borger,
true, John. But the thing I said, if that's true, so those are the things. I mean, we're taking an assumption. We're saying if that is true, and that is, and then we're building off of that assumption. I'm not sure that I'm going to want to think about that assumption. Allow me, and allow me to do that, and then let's on episode 3 of Two Old White Guys, which we're going to have, let's talk more about that assumption, because what I want to know is that if the barriers to the economic opportunity were changed, if there are barriers, if you assume that there are barriers, that someone who is growing up in the south side of Chicago in the gang-ridden world has different barriers than someone who is in someone who is in Bel Air, Texas, or one of the higher. If you think the barriers are different, then what can we do to remove any of the barriers? Absolutely making them responsible for their own growth and development.
Inclusiveness. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
You're just looking at me like,
I know. You stunned
inclusiveness.
Me. Yes.
Now,
but that means that's where we're the same, John. You and I.
It means you have the same opportunities.
Right.
It's up to you to make or use those opportunities.
Absolutely.
And how long have the progressives run those big towns
Yes.
where gang violence is rampant,
Right.
where educational system for the non-white population
Right.
sucks?
Right.
Um, at the same time, you know, the black community has been present in the United States for about
Right.
200 years or more.
A little
Um,
longer than that.
yeah, I think so. I was just thinking in terms. I mean,
Sure.
16. I know the
19.
1619 lady. There's a real.
Project. Right. Which is
At
just
any
the
rate,
first time when slaves made it onto this
right
part of North America.
now, I hate to digress on that, but
No, well, I tell you what, why don't we pick it up there for next show?
okay.
Why don't we pick it up there? Because if we're gonna deal with this, if we're gonna go, then let's go ahead and figure out what it is. What a pleasure, John. I'm so grateful that you're giving me this opportunity to be able to, because I need to sharpen the places where my logic is squishy or my thinking is squishy, and I can't think of any more of a flint than you to be able to sharpen that, because I've always appreciated and admired your intellect. I've always admired since we were children together. I've always looked up to you, and to get an opportunity to be able to have these conversations with you, to open our heads and our hearts to what is it that we can do and how can we contribute, because as old white men, we are still control 80% of the political and economic capital in the United States. We are still, and so we have something to say here. We can be part of the solution.
Well, uh, not to rain on your parade, but a divorced man doesn't control 80% of the capital. His
I'm
wife controls 72% of his assets when they divorce. Uh, so
exactly, and
don't come to me with that 80% of the capital. The problem is, and just on the one side, at the end of the Civil War, within a couple of years, there were 30 former slave millionaires. Now, they obviously were involved in the same situations that all the other slaves were. They were
mhm.
slaves. But
You
when the
and
bell
we
came,
and we are going to talk about that, because I
well,
do
good.
want to discuss Reconstruction, and I also want to discuss Tulsa, and we want to discuss exactly what was going on there, because I think there's some lessons we can get. But anyway, thank you, John Wright. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity on Two Old White Guys, and thank you everyone for watching us. And please give us comments, give John feedback, give me feedback. What should we talk about? What are the areas? And also, if there's anything that you see me do or you see me where I can improve, let me know about it.
Well,
Thank you.
ditto.
I know you will. All right. Thank you, John, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye bye.